What would you do if someone you loved accused you of never supporting their dreams, right after you'd secretly spent nearly $100,000 making those dreams come true? Well, buckle up, because this story is about to blow your mind. Welcome back to Ultimate Family Dramas, where real-life stories get messier than a soap opera. And today's tale involves betrayal, hidden receipts, and the most savage comeback you'll ever hear. Picture this. You've been married for 8 years. 8 long years of supporting your partner through thick and thin, believing you're building something beautiful together. Then one day, during what should have been a celebration, they look you dead in the eye and scream those words that cut deeper than any knife. You never supported my dreams. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. Let me take you back to where this whole nightmare began. Meet Sarah and Jake. Names changed to protect the guilty, obviously. Sarah was a dreamer, the kind of person who saw possibilities everywhere. She wanted to open her own boutique clothing store, something unique that would showcase local artists and sustainable fashion. Sounds beautiful, right? Jake thought so too. Now, Jake wasn't your typical romantic hero. He was practical, methodical, the kind of guy who balanced checkbooks for fun and read investment blogs before bed. But when Sarah talked about her dreams, something magical happened. Her eyes would light up, her voice would get this excited tremor, and suddenly Jake would find himself caught up in her vision too. The problem? Sarah came from a family where dreams were seen as luxury items, nice to have but not practical. Her parents had always pushed her toward safe careers, stable jobs with benefits, and predictable futures. So when she married Jake, she was working as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, slowly dying inside with each passing day of spreadsheets and tax forms. But Jake saw something her family never did. He saw the way she sketched clothing designs during her lunch breaks. He noticed how she'd stop outside boutique windows, not to admire the clothes, but to study how they were displayed. He watched her light up when she talked about ethical fashion and supporting local artisans. So Jake made a decision that would change everything. Without telling Sarah, he started what he called Project Dream Maker. Sounds cheesy, I know, but hear me out. Every month, Jake would secretly set aside money from his salary. Not just pocket change either, we're talking serious cash. He skipped lunches, canceled his gym membership, drove his beat-up Honda for 2 extra years instead of upgrading, and even took on freelance work in the evenings. But it didn't stop there. Jake knew that opening a boutique required more than just money. Sarah would need business connections, industry knowledge, and credibility. So he started networking like his life depended on it. He attended fashion shows, struck up conversations with boutique owners, and even took online courses about retail management and sustainable fashion. Remember, this is the same guy who used to think Fashion Week was something that happened in his laundry room. Jake connected with local artists, negotiating potential partnerships for Sarah's future store. He researched the perfect locations, analyzed foot traffic patterns, and even had informal conversations with landlords about lease terms. All without Sarah knowing a single thing about it. The man was like a secret agent, except instead of saving the world, he was planning to make his wife's dreams come true. Now, you might be wondering, why all the secrecy? Why not just tell Sarah what he was doing? Well, Jake knew his wife better than anyone. Sarah was proud, fiercely independent, and had been burned before by people who made promises they couldn't keep. If Jake had told her about his plan too early, she would have either insisted he stop or gotten her hopes up only to be devastated if something went wrong. So Jake waited, and planned, and saved. 2 years into Project Dreammaker, Jake had accumulated $20,000. Not bad, but he knew it wasn't enough for everything Sarah would need. So he made an even bigger decision. He refinanced their house. Now, before you start thinking Jake was being reckless, he'd done the math. Their property had appreciated significantly, and with a steady income plus the freelance work, they could handle the new payments. The refinancing gave them access to another $40,000. But Jake still wasn't done. He reached out to his brother, who owned a successful chain of restaurants, and pitched him on investing in Sarah's boutique. His brother was initially skeptical. What did he know about fashion retail? But Jake's passion was infectious. He'd done his homework, created a business plan that would make MBA students weep with envy, and presented projections that actually made sense. His brother invested $15,000. Jake's parents, who had always adored Sarah and watched her struggle with job satisfaction, contributed another $10,000 when Jake finally told them about his plan. His college roommate, now a successful marketing executive, not only invested $5,000, but also promised to help with the store's marketing strategy. But wait, it gets better. Jake had been quietly building relationships with suppliers, negotiating deals that would give Sarah access to sustainable fabrics and ethically made accessories at wholesale prices. He'd lined up partnerships with 3 local artists who were excited about having their work featured in a boutique setting. He'd even secured a verbal agreement with a local coffee roaster to create a small cafe corner in the store. By year 3 of Project Dreammaker, Jake had assembled everything Sarah would need: $95,000 in funding, a network of suppliers and partners, 3 potential locations with favorable lease terms, and a complete business plan that addressed everything from inventory management to social media marketing. All he needed was the perfect moment to surprise her. That moment came on their 8th wedding anniversary. Jake had planned what he thought would be the most romantic evening of their lives. He'd made reservations at the restaurant where they had their first date, arranged for her favorite flowers to be delivered to their table, and even hired a photographer to capture the moment when he revealed his surprise. The evening started perfectly. Sarah looked stunning in a dress she'd actually designed and made herself, though she'd never admit how talented she was. They laughed over appetizers, reminisced about their early dating days over the main course, and Jake could feel his heart racing as dessert approached. This was it. This was the moment when 3 years of secret planning would pay off. Jake excused himself, supposedly to use the restroom, but actually to collect the surprise he'd hidden with the restaurant manager. He returned to their table carrying a beautifully wrapped box, not jewelry, but something infinitely more valuable. Inside that box was a key. Not just any key, but the key to a boutique space in the trendy arts district downtown. Attached to the key was a letter Jake had written, explaining everything. The years of saving, the networking, the business plan, the investors, the suppliers, everything. But before Jake could present his gift, Sarah's phone rang. It was her sister, calling with news that she'd just gotten engaged to her boyfriend of 6 months. As Sarah congratulated her sister, Jake watched her face change. The joy dimmed, replaced by something that looked almost like resentment. When Sarah hung up, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Jake and said, "You know what's funny? Everyone around us is moving forward, chasing their dreams, making big changes. And here we are, stuck in the same routine we've had for years." Jake's heart sank. This wasn't how this conversation was supposed to go. He tried to redirect, suggesting they talk about their own future, their own dreams. But Sarah was just getting started. "I mean, look at us, Jake. Really look. I've been talking about opening a boutique for years, and what have we done about it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You just nod and smile when I bring it up, but you never actually do anything to help make it happen." Jake felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Here he was, holding the key to her dreams, literally, and she was accusing him of not supporting her. He tried to interrupt, to show her the box, but Sarah was on a roll now. "Your brother opens a new restaurant every 2 years. Your college friend just launched his 3rd startup. Even my sister, who couldn't commit to a breakfast cereal 6 months ago, is engaged and planning her future. But me? I'm still stuck in that soul-sucking accounting job because my husband thinks my dreams are just, what? Cute little fantasies." The restaurant around them seemed to fade away. Other diners, the wait staff, even the romantic lighting. None of it mattered anymore. This moment that Jake had planned so carefully was crumbling in real time. "Sarah, if you would just let me." But she cut him off. "No, Jake. I need to say this. I've been holding it in for too long. You never supported my dreams. You've never taken them seriously, never helped me figure out how to make them reality, never even suggested we start saving money for them. You just let me keep dreaming while doing absolutely nothing to help those dreams come true." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had just burned down everything Jake thought he knew about his marriage. And that's when something inside Jake snapped, not in an angry way, but in a clarity-bringing, enough is enough kind of way. He set the wrapped box on the table, opened it, and pulled out the key. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick folder. "Sarah," he said, his voice eerily calm, "I need you to stop talking for just 1 minute." Maybe it was the tone of his voice, or maybe it was the sight of that mysterious folder, but Sarah finally went quiet. Jake opened the folder and began pulling out papers. Bank statements showing the money he'd saved, receipts from his freelance work, documentation of the house refinancing, investment agreements from his family and friends, contracts with suppliers, partnership agreements with local artists, lease options for 3 different boutique locations. He laid each document on the table one by one, like he was dealing cards in the world's most expensive poker game. "This," Jake said, pointing to a bank statement, "is the account where I've been saving money for your boutique for the past 3 years. Current balance, $45,000. Sarah's eyes widened, but Jake wasn't finished. "This is the documentation from refinancing our house to access equity for your business. Amount available, $40,000. He pulled out more papers. "This is an investment agreement from my brother. Amount, $15,000. This is from my parents, $10,000. This is from Dave, my college roommate, $5,000. The pile of documents grew higher. "These are wholesale agreements I've negotiated with 3 sustainable fabric suppliers. These are partnership agreements with local artists. This is a lease option for a space in the Arts District. The key in that box opens the front door, by the way. I've been paying to hold that space for 6 months, waiting for the right moment to surprise you." Sarah sat frozen, her face cycling through confusion, shock, and something that might have been horror. But Jake still wasn't done. "This is a complete business plan I've spent 2 years developing, including market analysis, financial projections, and marketing strategies. This is a list of equipment suppliers, complete with quotes for everything from cash registers to clothing racks. These are contracts with a local coffee roaster who wants to partner with your boutique and a photographer who specializes in fashion retail." The table was now covered with papers, each one representing hours of Jake's time, pieces of his secret plan to make Sarah's dreams come true. "The total investment available to you right now, today, is $95,000. The network of suppliers, partners, and supporters I've assembled over 3 years is worth immeasurably more than that." Jake sat back in his chair, looking at his wife across a table now buried in proof of his devotion to her dreams. "So when you say I never supported your dreams, Sarah, what exactly do you mean?" The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah stared at the documents, picking up bank statements with shaking hands, reading partnership agreements like they were written in a foreign language she was just learning to understand. Other restaurant patrons had started to notice the commotion. Some were trying to discreetly peek at their table, probably wondering if they were witnessing a proposal, a breakup, or something else entirely. Sarah finally looked up from the papers, tears streaming down her face. "Jake, I had no idea. Why didn't you tell me?" And that's when Jake realized something important. This wasn't just about the money or the business plans. This was about communication, about assumptions, about the stories we tell ourselves when we don't have all the information. "I wanted to surprise you," Jake said quietly. "I thought if I could present you with everything at once, the money, the partnerships, the business plan, the location, it would be this amazing moment where all your dreams suddenly became possible." Sarah wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara but not caring. "But I thought you saw my boutique idea as just a silly pipe dream. You never talked about it seriously. You never asked questions about what I'd need to make it happen." "I was asking questions," Jake replied. "Just not to you. I was talking to boutique owners, suppliers, business advisors. I was researching everything I could think of so that when I presented this to you, it would be perfect." They sat there for a moment, looking at each other across 3 years' worth of misunderstandings and silent sacrifices. "I owe you an apology," Sarah said finally. "A huge one. I accused you of something that was completely wrong, and I did it in the cruelest way possible." Jake reached across the table and took her hand. "We both made mistakes," he said. "I should have included you in the planning. This is your dream, not mine. You should have been part of making it happen from the beginning." But here's where the story takes another turn, because real life is never as simple as the movies make it seem. Sarah picked up the lease agreement for the boutique space and read it carefully. Then she looked at Jake with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Jake, this space, it's beautiful. The location is perfect. The terms are incredibly generous. But there's something I need to tell you, and I don't know how you're going to react." Jake felt his stomach drop. After everything, was there going to be another twist? "About 6 months ago," Sarah continued, "I started having doubts about the boutique idea. Not about the concept, but about whether it was really what I wanted to do with my life. I've been thinking maybe I want to go back to school, get my master's in sustainable business practices, maybe work for a nonprofit focused on ethical fashion instead of running my own retail store." Jake blinked. Of all the responses he'd imagined, to his surprise, this wasn't one of them. "I've been afraid to tell you," Sarah went on, "because I know how much you believe in the boutique idea. I didn't want to disappoint you by changing my mind about my own dreams." And there it was, the final piece of the puzzle. Both Jake and Sarah had been so focused on not disappointing each other that they'd stopped communicating entirely. Jake had been secretly planning Sarah's dream business, while Sarah had been secretly reconsidering whether it was still her dream at all. They both started laughing at the same time. Not happy laughter, but the kind of slightly hysterical laughter that comes when you realize just how absurd your situation has become. "So let me get this straight," Jake said, wiping tears from his own eyes now. "I spent 3 years and $95,000 planning a business for a dream you're not even sure you want anymore. And I spent 6 months thinking you didn't support me while you were literally mortgaging our house to make my dreams come true," Sarah replied. They sat there laughing and crying simultaneously, surrounded by documents that represented both the best and worst communication failure in marriage history. But here's the beautiful part of the story and why it belongs on Ultimate Family Dramas. This couple didn't let this moment destroy them. Instead, they used it as a wake-up call. They left the restaurant that night with a new understanding of each other and a commitment to radical honesty going forward. Sarah decided she did want to pursue the boutique, but with modifications that incorporated her new interests in sustainable business practices and ethical fashion advocacy. The boutique they eventually opened, using Jake's carefully assembled resources, became not just a clothing store but a community hub for sustainable fashion education. Sarah used it as a launching pad to eventually start the nonprofit she'd been dreaming about, while Jake discovered he had a real talent for business planning and partnership development. But the most important thing they gained wasn't financial success or professional fulfillment. It was the knowledge that assumptions can be relationship killers, and that the people who love us most might be supporting us in ways we never even imagined. Jake's $95,000 worth of receipts became legendary in their friend group, but not because of the money. They became a symbol of love that goes unspoken, of support that happens behind the scenes, and of the importance of actually talking to your partner about the big stuff instead of making assumptions. Sarah still has those receipts, by the way, not in a file cabinet or a safe deposit box, but framed in their home office, where they serve as a daily reminder of what can happen when love and miscommunication collide. And Jake? He learned that surprising someone with the fulfillment of their dreams only works if you're absolutely sure you know what those dreams actually are. The moral of this story isn't that Jake was a hero or that Sarah was wrong to feel unsupported. It's that relationships require constant, honest communication, especially about the things that matter most to us. It's about recognizing that love languages include not just words of affirmation and acts of service, but also simply asking the right questions at the right times. So the next time someone in your life seems unsupportive of your dreams, consider this. Maybe they're not dismissing your goals. Maybe they're planning something incredible behind the scenes. And if you're the one doing the behind-the-scenes planning, remember that the best surprises are the ones where the person you love gets to be part of creating their own happy ending. Sometimes the most romantic thing you can do isn't to surprise someone with their dreams on a silver platter, but to sit down together and figure out how to make those dreams come true as a team. That's all for today's episode of Ultimate Family Dramas, where real families share their messiest, most complicated, and ultimately most human stories. If this tale of miscommunication, secret receipts, and surprise business plans resonated with you, smash that like button and let us know in the comments about a time when you completely misunderstood someone's intentions. Subscribe for more stories that prove reality is stranger, more complicated, and often more beautiful than any fiction we could write. And remember, the next time someone accuses you of not supporting their dreams, make sure you're both talking about the same dreams. Communication might not be as dramatic as throwing $95,000 worth of receipts on a table, but it's a lot less expensive and infinitely more effective. Until next time, keep your conversations honest and your receipts organized. You never know when you might need them.